And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 9 of the Halfords International Formula Alpha Championship. We are here in Barcelona. We've just been here for F1 and now we're here in the Tartus FAO1s. It's going to be a good weekend. We've got a double header this time round. We do apologise for the late start to quali. As ever, just having a couple of issues with Assetto Corsa. This time my fault, I will admit, forgetting to purchase the DLC that we're actually racing at. Anyway, onwards. We have got 4 cars who've set a time at the moment, so it doesn't look like we missed out on too much action, luckily. Matt Daley is currently sitting on pole with a respectable time of a 1:48.8. He's had not that much challenge so far. Rob Whitney putting in a very good lap as well. And Matthews and Paul Millman will be hoping to go out there and get a more tidy lap, I can imagine, as the track rubbers in and we have more cars out on track, maybe helping with a bit of slipstream. Always helpful in these multi-air powered FAO1s. It's be a glorious track up there at the moment, actually. It's a bit of the opposite to the UK at the moment. It's lovely and sunny. So yeah, this track, again, as we mentioned, just as the same at Imola last time round, it really does exercise, or pardon me, Portimao, it really does exercise these FAO1s as much as possible, because at the end of the day, I mean, I've actually just bought myself a Alfa Romeo with this 1.4 multi-air engine. 170 horsepower is not that much when you've got aero to contend with and you've got long straights. So as characterful as they are, they do struggle down the straights, so the drivers will be looking to go for as little slipstream, a little downforce as possible, and seeing what they can do in the corners. Colin Canifa set a very good time there, a 1:47.2. That will leave Matt Daley with a challenge. He does improve that time around, however it's not enough to match Colin Canife's impressive time there. Ballast is a factor in this race this time around, as ever it is in these small little cars, but Matt Daley is actually carrying more ballast than Colin Canife following his success in the last weekend. Colin Canife is actually only carrying 48 kilos, so he could be one to watch out for, actually. As quick as he is, with not that much ballast. Alex Smith as well had a very good weekend last time round. He is carrying 75 kilos, so a lot of ballast for Alex Smith there. So it will be a challenge this weekend, but after some good driving last time round, I'm sure we'll see the same again. We've got a couple more participants joining now, which is always good. You look at the back end of Matt Daley's car, actually. It looks like it's very softly sprung. It's almost kind of hitting the floor as he overtakes Colin Canife there, letting him carry on with his quick lap. So maybe Matt Daley was thinking that the rear end was just too lively, exiting some of these corners, and he's opted for a smoother but possibly slower setup. If you watched last time around, you watched the TCR race, so that's a very different strategy to what he pulled last time. He was running a very stiff setup on the rear end in hopes of hunting down Colin Canife, and that did work for him. Oh, as we see, he took a little bit too much curb there, and that luckily didn't put him in a wall, but it has ruined that lap for him, and will have no doubt done some damage to the car as well. So he does have 10 minutes to come back out and pull another lap in, and I'm sure he will. On board with Colin Canife now. He's just completed his outlap and he will be off on a quick one. We have someone joining the track. I believe that is Will Harper. Or that may be Guy Swarbrick, actually. Couldn't quite make our delivery, unfortunately. They haven't set a time yet. Will Harper has. We're on board with Colin, though. Heading around T3 now. It's always a challenge, balancing it right, because it's a very aero-heavy corner. This one, you're at full whack really heading into this corner, and push out too wide, you lose a lot of time, but obviously you don't scrub off too much speed because you'll again lose a lot of time, and that is something drivers will have to watch out for. Very technical corner there on the downhill. That is Will Harper, as you can see with the name tag there. So it's one to watch out for under braking. You don't want to lock up, scrub off too much speed and overheat the tyres. The front lefts, particularly at the start of the lap, are one to watch out for. On that big sweeping right-hander, really will cook the tyres if you're not careful. I want to check actually if this track has No, it does not. This track doesn't have the revised turn 10, as you will have seen in F1. In order to make MotoGP a bit safer, which is always good, they have kind of mellowed. Oh, as you see, Colin Knief taking a bit more gravel than he would have wanted there onto the side pods of the car. That will have lost him a bit of time, but he still has got that very, very good 147.2 to keep him safe, and he will return into the pits and abandon that lap. See, Matt Daley is back out on track now. He is... Actually, is he heading towards... No, he's heading towards turn 10 now. So yeah, they have made turn 10 kind of a more easy entry in real life. It does, arguably though, hamper overtaking opportunities, so glad we've still got this here in the virtual world. I'm sure there'll be plenty of action in these little cars around this very good Catalonia track. It doesn't quite work in F1, I don't think. Particularly this chicane section. But in these cars we've got so much less aero and so much less size, just physical size to worry about. Should be on for a good bit of battling. We will be on board with Matt Daley now as he starts his quick lap. Well, I say we'll be on board with Matt Daley, we're currently in a sign. Okay, no, here we are. Here is Matt Daley heading down the start-finish straight. He probably has time to adjust the radio and set the aircon. With these 1.4 multi-air powered cars, heading into turn 1 now. Couldn't quite make out what he was like on the apex there. He kind of washed out a little bit wide through turn 2. Nonetheless, he was carrying a lot of speed though, so I'm sure it won't hamper him too much. Car's looking very, very stable and very secure for him there. No real complaints from the rear end at all. Just seems to be on a very tidy lap, in all honesty. Nothing really stand out about it other than, yeah, just very well executed so far. And we are now heading towards turn 8. I think it's a cracking part of the track. This the S kind of uphill. I think it's a very lovely technical part. It's very easy to mess up, but very rewarding if you get it right, because it really helps on the entry to the straight heading into turn 10. Does have some traffic out in front. May catch up with that just before the end of his lap, but hopefully they would get out the way if that is the case. I believe that is actually Colin Knief. I'm sure there won't be any funny games going on between those two. Very respectful and experienced drivers they are. And here's where it all went wrong for Matt Daley on his previous attempt. He'll probably be a bit more conservative with the curb, I imagine, and yes, he is. And through the final corner now and onto the straight, it's pretty much all down to just the engine. Fortunately, it's not enough to improve on his previous time, and not enough to get closer to Colin Knief's excellent lap. The drivers will be thinking about scratching their heads, thinking about what they can do at this point, because there really isn't that much time left in qualifying. Probably only got 2, maybe 3 quick laps if you're lucky. Probably won't be able to pit between laps if you're going for 3, but they've only got a couple more attempts left now. And Matthews is quite close to Rob Whitney now, so I'm sure there'll be a little battle for that position there. And I think we may have had some issues with people joining. Rob Whitney's just put in an excellent lap, actually, of a 148.1. I'm sorry I missed that one, to be honest. My timing screen doesn't seem to be showing me when people are actually out on track today, which is annoying. I can see when they're in the pits, when they're in the pit lane, but usually I have a little marker on my second screen here that tells me when they're actually moving out on the track. So I'll just have to be a bit more diligent to make sure I can actually see them. But that was a cracking lap from Rob Whitney there with a 148.1. That is put him nicely in second position, and will certainly be pressuring Matt Daley to improve on his time. So very good job to him. We're on board now with Alan Matthews. Car looked very eager to turn in then. Looked to be maybe a little bit more of an edgier setup than Matt Daley, but it was, yeah, looked like it almost turned on its own axis there. Looked very good through that corner. Just goes to show how good that lap from Colin Knief is. And he's actually just improved with a 147.1. So I was just about to say, and in fact they still are ever so slightly by a couple of hundredths. his closest rival is currently only about a second slower. So Colin can even probably just put his feet up, to be honest, at the end of quali here, unless Matt Daley is going to be out on an absolute flyer. We're on board with Alan Matthews, though he was in close contention with Rob Whitney, but he's now got about half a second to find on him. Running a little bit wide there, track limits, I imagine. We do have the automated system in place, I believe, for this round. I may be incorrect there, but I imagine that will have picked up on him at the end of the lap there. It's not an improvement for Alan Matthews, unfortunately, and that sees him with probably only one real attempt left in 4th position at the moment. Let's check on the participants further down the grid. We have Will Harper in 5th at the moment with a 150.6. He has a couple more attempts under his belt, I presume. He has just completed his warm-up lap, and this will be his quick lap now, so we'll stay on board with him in the Shop for Parts sponsored FAO1. Heading into turn 8 now from, oh dear, and that's into the gravel for him. So he will have to abandon this lap and kind of collect his thoughts back in the pit lane for his final attempt to make his way up the grid. As we see Rob Whitney in the pit at the moment. We are with Matt Daley here, who is on his warm-up lap now, so we'll join him in just a moment to see how much he can improve by. And we have Will Harper on his in-lap, following his mistake at turn 8. Then we have Alex Smith in the session as well, which is good. I don't think he's set a time yet, but good to see that he is out. I can't, unfortunately, as he hasn't set a time, go on board with him. And it looks like Alan Matthews is going to have a bit of traffic to contend with if this is his quick lap. He'll enjoy the slipstream down the start-finish straight, but he will kind of want it to be over and done with straight after that. Of course, these cars are so aero-sensitive down the start-finish straight owing to their, well, lack of power, to be quite frank, and any differences in the downforce setups that people are running will show themselves, as Alan Matthews had a bit of rotation there through turn 2. That won't have helped his time at all. He seems to be quite quick through turn 3 though, and is going to kind of stick around the outside of Paul Millman. This could come to heads in just a moment. Heading into turn 4, oh, it's very close. We just see Paul Millman kind of clipping the apex and then running wide. In fact, is he still on track? I couldn't quite make out, unfortunately, but that almost got a little bit too close for comfort there, I think, for the drivers. We're on board with Matt Daley now, in fact. We will see if he can improve. And we are heading towards turn 10 now with Matt Daley. He hasn't improved on his previous best sector time for Sector 2. Unfortunately, he's going to have to put in an absolutely blazing Sector 3 if he has any hopes of making his way past P3 on the grid at the moment. It's going to be a tough one for him. Again, he's playing it very safe with that curb now after his previous misfortune, and that is the end of qualifying now. So drivers, this will be the final lap. It's not an improvement for Matt Daley, unfortunately. Colin Knief is out on track, actually. He looks to be secure at the moment, as Rob Whitney is still in the pits, actually, so he won't be improving. My Daley won't be improving, and unless Alan Matthews or Will Harper can find a couple of seconds, Colin Knief will be our man on pole for race 1 of this double header. This is his fast lap. He has just completed his out lap as he heads through turn 8 now. He's looking pretty safe for pole, but it'll be interesting to see if he can improve on that already very impressive time. Heading through turn 10 now. Executed beautifully. I was about to say, unfortunately, it looked like he just went 4 wheels over the white line for a brief moment. Be interested to see if that invalidates his lap. I imagine it will. Nonetheless, he is safe, but let's just see what time he can pull anyway. The brakes glowing heading into the chicane there. It really scrubs off a lot of speed, the chicane. You do have to get it right because you can mess up your entry into the last corner. You won't carry enough speed and you won't be quick enough down the start-finish straight. Colin Knief doesn't improve there, but he does retain pole with a 147.1. Very impressive run for Colin Knief. So we will be back shortly for race 1 of this double header here in Barcelona. And apologies for the delay, folks. We have just had a couple of issues with the setup on the server. We should be back in just a moment with the race ready to go. Well, apologies with the delay there, folks, and unfortunately we have missed the start of race 1, but I will give you the quick rundown. Colin Knief has led from lap 1 with Matt Daley just 2.5 seconds behind. Rob Whitney has unfortunately dropped back from second position and has allowed Matt Daley to take second, and is now kind of running his own race at the moment with Will Harper closely behind. He is still within reaching distance of Matt Daley, so I'm sure there'll be a little challenge there. But Colin Knief running a very good pace at the moment, nearly 3 seconds on the competition behind. It's what we've come to expect from him. He's just very impressive on race pace, and we are seeing that now. That the grid has stayed relatively clean, it must be said. There is a small gap between Alex Smith and Steve Knight. We've got an overtake from Alan Matthews, was attempted through turn 8 there, but he chose to play it safe and dipped in just behind. He's going to dive under braking into turn 10. What an impressive move by Alan Matthews there on Steve Knight. That was very brave from him to stick it on the inside and commit. Could have ended in tears very quickly that, but he got the move done, so well done to him. He moves up into 6th position now. Colin Knief has just set a fastest lap of the race with a 1:48.2. That's nearly... That's a decent quali lap, that is, from Colin Knief in the race, so he's extending his lead ever so slightly on the car behind now, nearly 4 seconds behind. Pardon me, that is my car sitting in the pits there. I am not partaking in the race, unfortunately, although that would be entertaining to commentate over while driving. We have Alex Smith, who showed some impressive pace on the previous lap. It is now hunting down Will Harper and is gaining on him through turn 3. Now less than a second cover these two. Alex Smith just echoing Will Harper's every move, staying within the slipstream of him. It's reaping the benefits, really, of that slipstream and gaining on him exponentially. We'll be coming into turn 7, turn 8 soon enough. And Alex Smith is going to stay behind. Will he stay behind? He's right until the very last second. He is waiting to pounce. I think he's going to wait for the slipstream. He wasn't going to try any brave moves around the outside or anything. He's going to wait till he's just in the slipstream enough, and then he's going to try and stick it around the outside. He's got the nose out just in front, but unfortunately Will Harper had the inside line, and that will relegate him back into 5th position. Couldn't quite make it stick at that time, but he is very close, and I can feel this move is going to be happening sooner or later with Alex Smith's impressive pace so far. Just saw earlier drivers complaining of too much ballast, which is being involved in racing. They will do. They'll complain about any type of disadvantage that they feel they've been given. It is designed to level out the playing field. As we watch Alex Smith just sit in the slipstream of Will Harper. He had nearly a second on Will Harper in the previous lap, so he has been pulling some decent numbers in terms of lap time. And watch him just dive on the outside there, trying to have the inside line in turn 3. He wasn't close enough, unfortunately, to kind of use his car as a blockade in turn 3. And he's pretty much in the same position that he was last time on the last lap, albeit a little bit closer. Alex Smith didn't opt to just stick it on the inside that time around. He kind of almost washed out a little bit. Maybe he thinks that's a quicker line. It very well could be with his setup. Obviously, this being an open setup championship, in these cars, it can have a huge effect on how the car performs in terms of just cornering speed, speed on the straight, how it looks after tyres. And as we head into turn 8, we see that Alex Smith is right on the behind of Will Harper again. I did say that this should be easier to overtake than it is in F1, but so far, this may not be the case. It's looking like Alex Smith is struggling. He's got the pace, but he can't quite seem to just make the move on the right places in the track, as he goes a little bit wide there out of turn 10. Looks like he's fighting the car a little bit into the corner. Looks like maybe he's overcooked his front tyres. So I'm just soaring at the wheel ever so slightly. And the car not going where he wanted it to. Through the chicane now, we see him going a little bit wide again. He's actually, oh, very, very nearly had it facing the wrong direction. Trying to correct for a little bit of understeer. And that saw him just get a bit of a swapper on. Maybe he's using the throttle to try and counteract it. I doubt it, though, in these cars. There isn't that much power, especially at the speed he was already going. I would be surprised if it upset it that much. You see Paul Millman and Steve Knight swap positions. As it looks like Steve Knight has either had an engine failure or he hasn't fueled the car correctly. It's been disastrous for him. Luckily for... Oh no, he's able to carry on. Maybe a hardware failure and on his setup, perhaps. It looked like the engine had died for one reason or another, but he is able to carry on, which is good. He is about 12 seconds behind Paul Millman now. This will obviously benefit him in the reverse grid race for the second part of the weekend. So, you never know, he may almost prefer this. He may just decide to treat this as a practice session for the next race now. Find out what works for him in terms of race pace and try and put in an excellent performance in the reverse grid. Meanwhile, out in front, Colin Knief nearly 8 seconds now on the car behind and 10 seconds overall covering the podium. Been a very impressive race for Colin Knief. He's not had too much bother at all. He's just been putting in some cracking laps and he's, well, he's been given the reward for it really. He's got a comfortable gap to the car behind now. And that is no mean feat, given that is our reigning champion, Matt Daley. So the grid has sort of separated out now following Alex Smith's previous mistake at this section of the track, actually. If I was Alex Smith now, I would probably take a couple of slow laps maybe, just to bring some life back into the tyres, see if he can, before he charges on Will Harper again. He had a couple... 2 or 3 laps where he was charging on Will Harper and that just seemed to finish the tyres, as we saw by the end of his lap there. The car just had nothing more to give. He does now have Alan Matthews for company, really, to be honest. The gap's kind of the same between him and Will Harper and him and Alan Matthews. So he's not in the most comfortable positions, really. They are fighting for some good points here. With only 8 participants, they are fighting for some very important points in this championship battle. So he will have to play his cards right to capitalise on this race. But Will Harper has demonstrated some really good pace so far this race, actually. He's done an excellent job, has kept it in 4th, kept Alex Smith behind with his pace. And you never know, he's only a few seconds behind Rob Whitney, actually. So if there's a mistake from Rob, or maybe his tyres fall off towards the end of the race, we could see Will Harper on the podium today. He's showed some good pace so far. In fact, as Matt Daley has had a mistake, and commentator's cursor, unfortunately, Matt, I do apologise, has seen Matt Daley off the track at turn 8, turn 9, and has seen Rob Whitney promoted into 2nd and Will Harper promoted into 3rd. And Alex Smith is now chasing Matt Daley closely behind. He will have a bit of dirt on his rear tyres, Matt Daley, from that. I'm not sure it'll last too long, but it's something you might have to consider at the closing stages of this lap. But that has really turned things around in this race, because all of a sudden we've got a few cars really now fighting Matt Daley, really, for a good finish in this race. Unfortunately, we see Alex Smith having nearly the same incident that he had before, and losing it on the exit of the chicane there. Maybe he's overcooking the rears a bit with his setup. He's moved onto the other side of the track in an attempt to keep Alan Matthews out of his slipstream. It won't work though, unfortunately. When you're hunting a slipstream, you're definitely hunting a slipstream, and Alan Matthews clearly is. He is following Alex Smith very closely behind, and he doesn't want to do that too much down start-finish straight, because he was very close to Matt Daley, and he's now escaping him. So he was going to keep losing time if he carries on trying to keep Alan Matthews out of his slipstream. He looks to be quite slow through turn 3. Alan Matthews carrying a lot more speed, and now sees Alan Matthews in 5th. Meanwhile, Matt Daley is actually not too far behind Will Harper, who swapped with him for 3rd position. I won't say anything about the status of the bottom step of the podium, because that didn't end well for Matt on the last lap, so I will just leave it for the audience to watch and for the racers to battle, because I don't want to have any influence with the commentators' curse. We do see Matt Daley, though, now very close behind Will Harper. Will Harper looks to be running an equally kind of soft setup on the rear end. It seems to have paid dividends for both of them so far, as Matt Daley does overtake Will Harper. Is he going to cut? No, he is not. He is going to stay on the outside, give Will Harper enough room, and it actually gives him the inside through turn 11 and allows Will Harper to take the position back. However, it is by no means safe, as we are at the halfway point of this race now. Will Harper is under a lot of pressure heading into the chicane now. We've seen a couple of drivers make mistakes here, so it'll be good of Will Harper to keep it on track and keep Matt Daley behind. However, he does now have Matt Daley in the slipstream, and that is one person you don't want to see filling your rearview mirrors. It seems to be about equal on pace, though, to be honest. The slipstream hasn't kind of towed Matt Daley in as much, although they are now side by side. And is he going to try and take the inside line? He is. He is actually going to have the nose out just before the corner, and is going to be able to get the move done nicely. Very neat from Matt Daley there, and he is now back on the podium. However, not in second where he would have wanted. He's about 4 seconds down on his previous position. However, now he's got he's dispatched of Will Harper. I am sure he'll be charging towards Rob Whitney again, trying to take second back. Good effort from Will Harper, though, to keep a very angry Matt Daley behind, I can imagine. Yeah, it really is. You look at the rear end of Matt Daley's car, it really is bobbing around on the undulations of the track. As I apologise for a bit of noise going on outside there. Matt Daley has in fact built a little bit of a gap on Will Harper, as we see the rear suspension of Matt Daley's car just bouncing around again. This could just be a bit of lag, you know, not showing the animation very well. It looks to me as if the setup's quite soft, but it could be the opposite, in fact. It could be the car kind of not really sitting on the tarmac too nicely. I'll have to ask Matt Daley about that one. Because it really is a point of interest, I think, with these cars. Having an open setup can really affect the cars in so many different ways, especially on technical tracks like this. Because they are so small and so light, the setup can really have a huge influence over the way the car drives. There is now only 2 seconds between Matt Daley and Rob Whitney as he heads onto the start-finish straight now and carries on his charge to second place. Unless Colin Knief has a serious misfortune, I think Matt Daley is going to be hoping for second in this race. That will give him the advantage over Colin in the reverse grid. Be a very good drive from him if he can recover 2 seconds. There's about 1.5 seconds now to him and Rob Whitney, so this move is coming on in the next couple of laps, I feel. As we see, just under a second and a half now separating Matt Daley and Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney, I'm sure, will have slyly been hoping for perhaps a little bit of a slower re-entry to the track for Matt Daley there. It would have given him a bit more of a buffer. He would have had a few more minutes of safety, I imagine, but that is coming to an end very shortly, as he's now in a second and will have a nice bit of slipstream on the back straight, and again will have it on the start-finish straight. Meanwhile, this is going on. Alan Matthews and Will Harper are having their own little battles. We can see Matt Daley hunting down Rob Whitney in the distance there. Alan Matthews is very close behind Will Harper now. Will Harper's maybe his pace has dropped up ever so slightly following his attempts to keep Matt Daley behind. I think we're seeing, as we head towards the end of the race, especially now, the drivers are really having to pay attention to how they look after their tyres. This track does load them very hard through the long sweeping corners. And yeah, it can really, really affect them towards the end of the race, as we've seen with Alex Smith's setup, perhaps. not helping him at all, maybe a bit too on edge, and by the time the tyres are hot, they're losing grip, and it's not helping at all. Haven't seen it quite as much as we saw on Alex Smith's car. It was a bit more dramatic on his car. But I imagine as we enter the closing stages of this race now, with just under 10 minutes to go, we'll start to see drivers battling a bit of tyre deg. Speaking of battling, we have Matt Daley is now less than half a second behind Rob Whitney. As we head into turn 7 in just a moment. Rob Whitney, we want to be placing his car inch perfect, really, to keep Matt Daley behind. Even a hundredth that he loses will allow Matt Daley to sit in the slipstream just that little bit more and allow him to gain that little bit more time down the straights and really pressure him in the corners, as we see Alan Matthews picking up a little bit of dirt there, heading onto the back straight. Conconneath is just setting another fastest lap. That would have actually still put him on pole in qualifying that lap, as he's starting to run lower on fuel now. So he's just had absolutely amazing pace. Oh, that's an interesting line from Rob Whitney there. I imagine he'll be penalised for that in some way, and in fact, has he had an issue with the car? Yeah, that must be an issue with the car, even as we mentioned before, either engine or, as it looks like the car stalled for a second there and now it carries on. Is he having maybe issues with his racing equipment? Well, that unfortunately sees him back in 5th now, has handed Matt Daley 2nd. Matt Daley, who's now half a minute behind Colin Conneath. Such is the pace of Colin Conneath. Alex Smith overtakes Rob Whitney now for 5th position. But let's just go on board of Colin Conneath for just a second. He has been running his own race, it must be said. Has had no real competition as we head into the closing stages of this race now. Nearly half a minute. That's nearly a third of a lap. He's basically a sector ahead of everyone else. Impressive stuff from Colin Conneath. Matt Daley has found himself back into 2nd following the misfortune of Rob Whitney there. Will Harper's found himself back on the podium. However, he does have Alan Matthews for company, and Alan Matthews now knows what is on the cards for him if he gets this move done, so I imagine he'll be uber aggressive, hunting down Will Harper. Alan Matthews picking a slightly tighter line, and I think he's just clipped Will Harper ever so slightly. I think Will Harper kind of cut off the track a little bit and tried to go back. Oh dear, there's going to be a little bit of an unsafe re-entry for Will Harper there. Cut it very close. He's now carrying quite a bit of damage, you see on his front wing there. Has handed Alan Matthews a position, but we'll have to speak to the stewards for that one, I think. That all happened in the blink of an eye, it must be said. Alan Matthews was kind of alongside, very close behind Will Harper, and unfortunately, looked like Will Harper had gone a little bit wide, re-entered the track, but Alan Matthews was already there and just clipped him, and that sent the car round, from my perspective at least. I could be wrong, but that'll be one for the stewards to sort out. I imagine no driver will be particularly happy with this one. It'll be interesting to see on this go-round if Alan Matthews is actually carrying damage. I mean, it has promoted Alan Matthews onto the podium, but it'll be interesting to see if that stands. Meanwhile, two drivers who are very close are Alex Smith and Rob Whitney. Alex Smith is now in 4th following Will Harper's misfortune. Rob Whitney is very close behind. You see him just kind of hunting for a bit of unused tarmac there in turn 3, and he takes the inside line and is now side by side with Alex Smith. He still has the inside, but he looked like he kind of outbraked himself ever so slightly. Rob Whitney will now have the advantage, but then again, carrying that inside line has given Rob Whitney the position back. They are absolutely side by side, as it looks to be that Rob Whitney has just backed off a little bit there and has dived in behind Alex Smith now, but they were side by side for a good few corners. Excellent battling between those two drivers there. And it is probably nowhere near over as we head into the final 5 minutes of this race. Will Harper there carrying quite a bit of damage. He may be at risk from Paul Millman with that front wing. It looks pretty badly damaged. He will be losing a lot of time through the corners there, as Rob Whitney outbraked himself ever so slightly, or locked up the front perhaps, and has very much conceded the position to Alex Smith, and in fact has now got Will Harper for company. I'll be surprised if Will Harper, especially through the technical chicane section, is able to make ground on him, owing to the sheer amount of damage on the front of his car as Matt Daley takes the... yeah, in fact, look, is Rob Whitney carrying damage there? Or his tyres just cooked? Because there's something going on with his setup, maybe. I'm not quite sure. There's something fishy is going on with Rob Whitney today. Looks like he's had either a setup issue or the engine really has conked out this time. As I said, there looks to be a bit of wheel wobble, or is that just the lighting on the car? He has stopped. He's either out of fuel, blown his engine, or his steering wheel has failed IRL. He will now be overtaken by Paul Millman and will probably retire from the race, I can presume, which is a great shame. He was battling for the podium just a few laps ago. But that is an odd one. These are multi-air powered after all, so, you know, maybe a multi-air failure. Wouldn't be too surprised. Not the first time that's happened. But Will Harper is now trying to have a little battle with Alex Smith, and it'd be very impressive if he can make it stick, especially with that damage on the front end of his car. We still need to check out the damage on Alan Matthews' car. We haven't quite got around to it. It's been an action-packed couple of laps. It shouldn't... it's very hard to tell by the nature, because Assetto, the way it calculates the damage and the way it shows it are two different things, especially with quite a simple car model like this. It could be affecting him in the straight. It could be actually relatively minor. Alex Smith could have overcooked his tyres to the point where Will Harper is actually still able to carry on and battle him, which is always enjoyable from the viewer's perspective. We've just gone board with Alan Matthews. His car looks to be okay, actually, as he heads into the chicane there. It doesn't look like he's carrying a particularly huge amount of damage, if any, so he got off lucky from that one. Let's see if the stewards give him the same fate, the same luck. Will Harper is kind of sticking about half a second behind Alex Smith, but unfortunately it doesn't look like he's able to do anything with it. I wonder if it's a combination of difficulty to overtake at this circuit and the damage he's carrying. Both of these drivers have shown good pace this time round. And I imagine Will Harper would be even more competitive if he had that front wing in full working order. He's going to try into turn one. He's unfortunately too far behind and will remain in 5th position. So we are very soon actually about to come on to the penultimate lap with Colin Knief, who is actually over 30 seconds ahead now. We're going to stay with Will Harper just for the moment because he's going to have the inside line, and under braking is going to get the move done. However, Will Harper is, Alex Smith is carrying a lot of speed around the outside, now has the inside for this corner and will have the advantage. Will Harper dives behind Alex Smith now, as we are on the penultimate lap. Enjoys the advantage of his slipstream. Doesn't like the car's quite as eager to turn in as Alex is, though. And he kind of resumes his position about half a second behind Alex Smith as Colin Knief starts the final lap of this race as he laps. Is that Steve Knight there? Yes, it is. An impressive drive from Colin Knief, really. Not too much to say. It's just been quali lap after quali lap, it seems. Pulls 33 seconds on Matt Daley. Following misfortunes for pretty much everyone else in this race, it seems. Colin Knief has had a very, very good race. Yeah, just absolutely solid from him. Impressive pace the entire time. He's clearly looked after his tyres well, and has clearly got this track nailed following that excellent qualifying performance as well. So we will rejoin him very shortly as we watch him cross the line. As Will Harper is very close on his start-finish straight, heading onto their final lap now. He is side by side with him, having enjoyed that slipstream. I wonder if it'll drop back ever so slightly, though, owing to that damage he is carrying. No, it does not. He has still got a little bit of an advantage and will take the inside into turn 1. And so far will remain ahead as Colin Knief is heading into turn 10 now. We will just for a few seconds more stay with the action, fighting for 4th position. As Will Harper has remained out in front for a couple of corners now and looks to be able to defend reasonably well given the damage carried on his car, as Colin Knief is now heading through the chicane following an impressive race from him. We saw this in the TCR Championship at Brands Hatch as well, where... Oh, as I say that, Colin Knief spins! Oh dear, what has happened for Colin there? He's got such an advantage that he will be able to carry on regardless, but that's quite the end to the race. I wasn't expecting that. I was just complimenting him on a perfect race. And just on the last corner of the last lap, Colin Keith spins and is able to retain the lead. But that is not the way he would have wanted to end his otherwise impeccable race. Colin Keith taking first position there as Matt Daley heads through the chicane. Spins himself. These tyres must be really, really finished by this point. Matt Daley spinning as well as Colin Keith, and still got the gap on the cars behind him to cross the line in the position he spun from. But at the very same place, Matt Daley taking home second position there. And we'll watch now as Alan Matthews has overtaken Will Harper. I imagine something happens for it to be a 4-second disadvantage. Oh, Alan Matthews makes it round absolutely fine, as does Will Harper. That's very boring, but very good to see. Alan Matthews then rounding out the podium, taking home third position. A very hard-fought race for him. Likewise for Will Harper, carrying some damage, but ending up in fourth position, so well done for him. Alex Smith, again, very hard-fought race for him, taking home fifth. As we watch Paul Millman now come round the chicane. Carrying some damage, actually, is Paul Millman, and it looked like the rear end was a little bit twitchy there, but nowhere near as much as it was for Colin Keith and Matt Daley. As Paul Millman crosses the line in sixth. Rob Whitney had a very unfortunate race, owing to a few issues. Such a shame, as he was battling for podium positions at the very start. Takes home seventh, and Steve Knight rounds out the field in 8th position. So a very action-packed race at Catalonia here, and we'll be back very shortly for the reverse grid race to round out the weekend. See you shortly. And apologies for the delay there, folks. We're just having a couple of issues with getting the server restarted. I will be able to provide you an update on the status of the reverse grid race, which we are, as I am sure, well, I am at least, looking forward to. Given the last race, I'll be able to update you on the status of that in just a moment. So please sit tight. And unfortunately, regarding some server issues that haven't allowed us to start race 2, we will be terminating this race weekend here, unfortunately. It was a cracking race in race 1. I'm sure we would have been on for another excellent race in the reverse grid, but it won't be happening, unfortunately. I hope you enjoyed the racing action that you were able to see, and I'll be able to update you in the next race regarding the status of this round in terms of points for the championship, etc. Nonetheless, hope you enjoyed what you were able to see. Apologies for the delay in finding out that sad news, but we will join you